Okay, hello, good afternoon. So I am Anam Zahid. I'm a data scientist at KenSci, and KenSci is a startup in downtown Seattle. We are close partners with Microsoft, bringing machine learning and AI to healthcare. And today we're going to be talking about data scientist and data science role in healthcare. And I was actually fortunate enough to be the first data scientist at KenSci when it started 3 years ago, and have since taken many roles since then. And we have really been on this journey with a lot of healthcare systems to bring them machine learning insights during these years. And today, really excited to share some of the insights we have learned. If for anybody who's interested in pursuing data science in healthcare or interested in investing into these capabilities in their system. And so yeah, let's get started. I want to start with talking about sort of the role that data science can play in healthcare and why it is so suited for this particular domain. And really starting from the enriched data that we have in healthcare itself. And being, sort of on the consumer end ourselves, we know that we produce so much data in different variety of formats as consumers of healthcare. So if I consider myself, I know that if I go to the hospital, if I go to the emergency department, a lot of data points I am producing about myself, about my health into the system. And not just that, I wear wearable devices. I'm producing data related to my health through that and expanding that even further. Everything that I do in my lifestyle and every day-to-day activity is contributing to sort of some picture of what my health is as of today and what it could be tomorrow. So really the different variety, velocity, and volume of data that exists in healthcare makes it so suitable for AI and machine learning and data science activities, that this becomes a very expected to be a good field for these kinds of applications. And then if we think about from a caregiver perspective, really when we are giving care as a clinician or as a care manager or in any other role, what we are really doing is looking at the patients that are in front of us and really analyzing the patterns that are in our heads from other different examples of prior patients or prior similar examples, and looking at the outcomes that our decisions had previously and trying to utilize that to make the decisions today. So that makes it, anybody who's in data science or machine learning knows that is literally what the base concept of machine learning is. So really looking at the patterns of these problems from the past and in the data, and utilizing the outcomes that we have seen in the past to predict the future. And so that makes it, again, very suitable for a lot of these applications. And what role does applying data science in healthcare brings in is really utilizing all this data that is coming in all these different formats and different different frequencies, is to really optimize the system in a way that we are improving the workflow efficiency and accuracy. So a lot of these healthcare systems do have all this data lying around from years and years of information from patients and systems and actions that were taken. And really the role that data science can bring in is just to make sure that we are making those improvements in the workflows of the users at the right time, and really modifying those workflows in slight manners. But the outcomes or the ROI in return is much, much larger than the changes that we're making. It's just making those decisions more smartly. And then really at the end of the day, bringing data science into healthcare is about strategizing for the future. And so currently, a lot of what we do is reacting towards what has already happened. So a lot of systems are using basically the data from what has already happened to react to institute certain programs or bring in new initiatives. But really what we're trying to help here is utilizing the data that we already have to predict the future, and how can we utilize that to bring in future strategies and implementation plans so that we can proactively gauge and tackle those problems that might occur in the future and have not already occurred, but we can already predict them and can already plan for that. So really, this is kind of the overall view of why data science we think is very, very suitable for healthcare, and how it and has been playing a major role in the past few years, as we can see with a lot of healthcare systems, trying to get ahead of that curve, really. And so this is, an image that we use a lot to kind of depict what our goals are. And so this image on the left that you're seeing here is from IBM back in, I think, 1950s, talking about how, bringing these additional, these first-time calculators, some format of these calculators is really helping them feel like they have additional, engineering power. And so what our main principle here when we do data science for healthcare is that we want to build the tools and technologies in a way that we and our end users feel like they have the additional data science power that they did not have before. And so utilizing the tools of machine learning and our underlying platform and infrastructure, our goal is to help us, our internal data scientists, and our end users and consumers and their analytics team to feel like they have the power to do these analytics on scale, and for the large magnitude of users that they have, and enabling all those millions of actions that they're trying to take using these tools. And so this is really, something that we use internally a lot to kind of use as a principle internally whenever we're making these decisions to ensure that we're binding and aligning towards that overall goal. And so I was just wanted to share this out with everyone to think through those design principles as you're building these tools. Because if you're not thinking at scale, you're not really building for healthcare. Because at the end of the day, it is a problem that is of a huge magnitude. And so every tool that you build, every model that you put into place, everything that you create as a data scientist, it is going to impact so many people and so many users. And so you have to think in scale, in technical terms, and in user terms. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, now that we understand a little bit of the role and the thinking that we have taken at KenSci about data science and what we think we can help with in bringing these healthcare and machine learning technologies to healthcare. What are some of the things that we have learned so far in this journey? And if you're someone who's interested in, who has been a data scientist and wants to pursue healthcare, or, who is in healthcare and wants to, expand on their data ability to be more predictive and bring in machine learning and data science, these are some of the things that I think would be really, really helpful if you're, someone starting on that journey. And so I'm going to start with transparency. And this is something that I think is extremely critical. It's not just about healthcare. I want to start with, saying that even in general, the concept that we're trying to apply here is that, when you're helping someone make a decision, and if you're just in general helping someone make a decision, you want to provide them all the factors that would help them understand the why behind it. And the why is more important than what you are actually presenting as an outcome. And when you're working with clinicians or caregivers, they are on the hook for making very high impact, high risk decisions. And so if you're discounting the importance of transparency in this workflow, then you're really not looking at this from the perspective of the end user, and then you're just setting yourself up for failure. Really, it is about, enabling that end user to have the trust in the technology that you're building. And so it is extremely critical that whatever you're building, not just that it has to be accurate or it has to be, state of the art in all those things, it has to be explainable. Because at the end of the day, we are helping these people make certain decisions, and, they have actually the right to know why. And so we, when we're building, models and features and all these things, we already, we always make sure that, we are putting that explanation wherever the user is interacting with our outcomes. And so this has been extremely critical in not just the buy-in from the user or the understanding from the user perspective of the technology that we're building, but just in general, bringing machine learning and data science to healthcare and that journey that a lot of these systems are taking. I think transparency and explainability of these things is very critical. And then lastly, one thing that is very important as we're applying these new tools and technologies to healthcare data, this new problem of fairness has become, is a new discussion topic, and you might hear about this. A lot of research is going into this every day, and so it's not just helping your end user use the things that you're building. It is actually helping you to make sure that the models that you're building are fair, are transparent, and are giving are representing the data and the population in a way that is fair to everyone. So this I think is one of the key tenets and key principles that is very critical if you're anybody interested in applying data science capabilities to healthcare data. And the second one is how you integrate well with clinical judgment and clinicians. One thing, and this does not necessarily mean just clinicians, it is about whoever your end users are from the overall healthcare domain. Even if you're, building a model that goes to, is helping the clinician make bedside decisions, or even if it is a model that helps, a system administrator make, operational changes. It is very important to involve the end users' input into the process. And so one of the things that has really helped us during this process is that we work. So basically, each data scientist at KenSci, for example, is paired with clinical experts or end user experts throughout the development of a data science project. So what that helps is that they have the input from their years and years of experience of actually doing these things, from what we were referring to earlier, as well as this pattern detection that they're doing in their heads. So things like you're creating features or predictors that go into a model. So beyond just using the tools that are there in machine learning or the techniques, you could actually use the clinical judgment or their input to actually inform or brainstorm what kind of features or predictors could go into your model. And sometimes we have seen that something that we brainstormed together with a clinician was actually the biggest predictor to predict a model than some of the other things that we were coming up with just by looking at the data. So if you're anybody working in the healthcare domain, it is very important to utilize the input of your end users while you're building in the process of building these models or these applications, rather than more so of an afterthought, because their input is actually going to help you something that is a much better, much higher value model or application that you're trying to build. So this is something that has really helped us and has been part of how we operate in terms of data scientists and clinicians paired together to build these different models and brainstorming different solutions, and just even how you're going to present your outputs, and because that maps to the end user persona, that has really helped us build models that resonate with our end users and make sense to the end users, and they feel like their understanding of the problem is being captured by the machine that is doing the computation. And so that is really critical as we go along building some of these pieces and components. The third thing really here is about relationships, and this is more general, not just in terms of if you're in healthcare, even in general, if you're applying data science and bringing in data science capabilities, but especially in healthcare. Healthcare is a very wide domain, and healthcare systems are spread across so many different teams and systems and roles because they're so huge, and they're taking care of so many different kinds of aspects of patient care and a patient journey throughout their care path. And so one thing that is very critical is to understand how different departments and aspects of people play into the strategies that you're helping develop, and really integrating with all of those to define the design of what you're building. So as a data scientist, if I'm building a model and that predicts one particular outcome, I could, just completely focus on that and think about all the technological things I can apply to it, and just focus on, building the best model that I can from my understanding of what the best model means, and just building that and going into really, focused on that one piece. But if I don't understand how this impacts different workflows, where does it go into the system that I'm applying this into, and really building those relationships that would help me model that behavior into what I'm building here, is then I'll lose basically that dynamics of the real world scenarios, and I'll build something that can actually not solve the problem that I was intending to do. So a lot of times when, we bring in new data science, people who have probably been working in other domains, or, just starting out in machine learning or data science, this is something that we invest into, learning and helping them learn, is all these different relationships of people and departments that are in healthcare system, and how they impact the design of what we're building here, and why that is so critical. And that's something that is maybe not as apparent as you go into some other domains, but in healthcare, it has been extremely, extremely critical to actually move along the development of different projects and actually building the best solution for the different problems that we encounter. And the fourth point actually is kind of tied to that. It is about keeping that holistic view of what you're trying to build here. And so in this, it kind of brings together everything that we've just discussed. And in general, it's really not just about, building the coolest technology. If you're someone, doing this and if this is like a new thing, healthcare, in terms of, if you're bringing in data science into healthcare, really one thing that you would see is this is much beyond just, building something that is fancy and something that, is just cool technology. Really, it is about solving a problem, and you have to think through that from various different perspectives, not just from the end user perspective, not just from the technological perspective of machine learning. You have to think about infrastructure, what impact that you have would have on the underlying, components. What are the different functionalities that you need to integrate into what you're building, so that it would actually result into something that can support the real world scenarios that you're trying to solve. And so you have to think about various different people and personas. You have to think about various different factors that go into this. And even in terms of data that you get to play around, there's so many different kinds and ways of to model that data that you would, you could go on forever just going in depth in terms of how you want to bring in all that data together. But really bringing all those pieces together in a way that makes sense, and in a way that is clinically useful is kind of the whole objective of what we're trying to build here. And so having that holistic view as the data scientist, and we, internally always refer to data scientists as kind of, being the heart of what we're doing. And so, they are kind of the integration point of all these different experts, whether they're engineering efforts going on, or their clinical efforts going on, or their marketing efforts going on. All of that brings to kind of the core of what we're building here, and impacts the design of what we're doing here. And data scientists really need to keep that holistic view of those processes as they're building these things. And so those are kind of the four things that we have really learned in our process of, in the past 3 years of bringing and working with, a lot of healthcare systems, and different kind of problems, whether those are, specific to patients, whether those are operational, whether those are around, finding variations in, different kind of patterns and variations in different areas of the healthcare systems. Really, these are some of the things that have helped us grow from our learnings and really adapt to our users' needs. And hopefully this helps, anybody who's listening to, if they're interested in, bringing data science to healthcare. And really, at the end of the day, I think it boils down to, you having the right set of, goals and principles, that you're aligned with the overall mission, and you really want to invest your time and effort into, solving this problem and applying data science and machine learning to healthcare, because it is really, it's not very similar to, a lot of different other AI and machine learning applications that you see across other domains. So, but if you're really grounded in the mission of what you're trying to do here and what you're trying to solve for, it would really help you kind of guide your path in terms of where you need to go, what are the areas you need to focus on, and where the effort needs to go. And so we always say, it's always at the end of the day, we're helping, get the right care to the right patients at the right time. And really, if you believe in that, that's basically the key of, getting you started on this journey. Thank you, and open for questions.
Does anyone of the participants have any questions?